I'm actually really early. This is going to be the soty 2023 video. I just skipped 2022. There are already enough videos about it, right? I think everybody covered what needed to be said. Just kidding. The content around soty this year sucked so badly. Oh my god. So many people making videos about Skater of the Year who just have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. They have zero insight as to how the process works or what things are important and what things are not important. I was doing a lot of hate watching from the soty content.
Raisa Leo. She had clips come out with April and Nike SB, a full part with Nike SB.
I didn't actually like what soty kind of became this year. It's turning skateboarding into a game where there's winners and losers, which is not really what street skateboarding is supposed to be about. Like, if you think about a basketball game, you know, there's two teams, and say one guy on one of the teams does an epic 360 windmill dunk, and that team ends up losing the game. Well, that 360 windmill dunk doesn't really look that cool anymore because basketball is all about winning and losing. If the thing you did in the game didn't contribute to your team really winning, then it doesn't matter as much. If they're part of the Skater of the Year campaign, if you don't end up winning, it feels like it diminishes those video parts. So the great thing about skateboarding and street skateboarding, one of the things that drew me to it, and I would imagine many other people, is the fact that there isn't really like a winner or loser, and it's all about who can do the coolest dunk, and that's supposed to be the point of it. It's just about doing, you know, dope tricks. I feel like that spirit has been lost a little bit with Skater of the Year. So, you know, T-Funk, like, because he ollied over the China Banks, he still ollied over the China Banks. It's not any less cool because he didn't win soty. You know what I mean? So I just want to point that out and have like a rare moment of appreciation for everybody that, you know, put out footage this year that didn't win, because ultimately Skater of the Year, I mean, it can be very fun if it's done correctly, but I don't think that this year it was done correctly. I think that things got a little out of control, and Thrasher, they can come across as really tactless and disrespectful and greedy with the way that they do Skater of the Year. Kind of needs to be checked as this entity that takes so much from all of the skaters involved, you know, like, for example, the day that Tyshawn won, that morning, Gary Rogers live on Twitch interviewed Nyjah, and they announced that Tyshawn won like 2 hours later, which that feels really disrespectful to me, to not even, you know, wait a day. They're still, you know, acting like Nyjah has a chance at winning the award. That's why he's doing the interview. That's why he gave them his part in the Monster Side Mission video before the entire video came out, and Thrasher put it on their website. It feels like, because of how fast everything happened, that Thrasher just wanted to take as much resources as possible from all of the skaters to use for their own company, because Thrasher is a media company. They deal in media. That's their currency. So they take all of the skaters that are in the running. They want to take all of their media. They want to milk them for every single second of content that they're worth. And then as soon as that's over, like Nyjah the day of did the interview the same fucking day that Tyshawn got announced, as soon as they don't have anything else to give, Thrasher just says, okay, thanks for the exclusive video part yesterday, and then thanks for the exclusive interview today. Let's wait 2 hours, and now we'll just announce that Tyshawn won. Nyjah never had a chance at winning soty, and this is kind of another area that I don't like about Thrasher, and I think they're really distasteful, is the reason Thrasher's never gonna give Nyjah soty now, because of all the, you know, the allegations against him. So they're never going to give him the award. They're never going to crown him Skater of the Year, because in doing so, they're kind of saying, like, skateboarding doesn't care about all these things that Nyjah is accused of. He's still our best skater. And also, as soon as he has that title, then all the people are going to come out of the woodwork again, and that conversation is going to get rehashed. And I know Nyjah made a very well-worded PR statement about it in his Thrasher interview, and he broke his silence or whatever. And I'm not going to lie, it was a really good statement that Nyjah made, but if this is just my point of view and my belief based off of people that I've talked to, is I think weird shit probably does happen at Nyjah's. You know, usually when there's smoke, there's fire around these situations, and maybe it's not provable or anything, but I don't know, maybe Nyjah shouldn't be Skater of the Year. Maybe no matter what he does, he shouldn't be crowned the king of skateboarding for the year, because he does weird shit at his house. If he does, then I can understand that. The thing that I don't like about Thrasher is they need to pick a side. They need to be all or nothing on it, because if they're unwilling to give Nyjah Skater of the Year because of this weird shit that he may or may not have done, then don't put his shit on your website. Don't put him in the top 4. Don't take his footage and use it to promote Thrasher. Don't act like he's in the mix if he never was. I mean, that's just as bad as giving him soty, in my opinion, because you're taking all of Nyjah's footage, you're taking all of his resources without actually assuming any of the risk by giving him Skater of the Year. So I think that Thrasher's playing both sides of it. I think it's really backhanded and gross. Either give him a fair crack at it or don't. Nobody actually knows what Nyjah does. Nobody actually knows if he's guilty or not guilty of the things that he's accused of, but you can't put him in the running and then just completely cut him out. And I think that he was the other fan favorite besides Tyshawn, and I know what Thrasher was considering was Tyshawn or T-Funk. Those were the two that I know for a fact that Thrasher was picking between at the final seconds. In my opinion, trick for trick and part for part, Nyjah did the hardest things of the year, and I don't really think that it's a question. Nyjah parts are difficult to watch, but if you write these things down and you just look at the sheer volume of insane stunts that Nyjah pulled this year, it's unbelievable. He had the most stacked year where he did the hardest tricks, and they're all rail tricks and shit, so Nyjah's parts can be kind of difficult to watch, but I think the fact that they gave it to Tyshawn shows that they're cool with giving it to a specialized skateboarder. Tyshawn is specialized in the same way that Nyjah is specialized, just on different obstacles. I think the fact he wasn't in the bottom 2 to win soty is complete bullshit. And it's totally unfair to Nyjah. So I think, again, if Thrasher is going to use Nyjah and they're going to use his resources to create engagement for their Instagram page, their YouTube channel, and their website, and they're never really going to give him a fair shot. If I were Nyjah, I would say fuck Thrasher, and I wouldn't ever give them anything ever again. I would just give my parts to Free Skate Mag or Nike or Monster or whoever the fuck is paying me. I wouldn't go through Thrasher anymore, because I think Thrasher has proven they're happy to take from Nyjah, but they don't really like him. They don't really respect him. In my opinion, Nyjah should just make a stance against Thrasher. I think Thrasher needs Nyjah more than Nyjah needs Thrasher. Nyjah's good enough. His footage is strong enough to the point where if he rejects Thrasher and he rejects the Skater of the Year process, then I think he's going to look a lot better than if he continues groveling and trying to win an award from a group of people that is never, ever going to give it to him. For all the reasons that you could say Tyshawn should win and that Tyshawn won, I personally feel that all those reasons are applicable to Nyjah as well. Both of them are skaters that are highly specialized in their respective styles. Nyjah goes for biggest, longest rail, and that's what he does. He tries to, he does some tech stuff on rails occasionally, but really Nyjah's shtick is he wants to grind the biggest rails that he can find. You look at his footage, the reason it gets boring when Nyjah drops footage, and because his parts are almost all handrails. And I feel the same exact way about Tyshawn, which Tyshawn's footage can get boring as well, because all of Tyshawn's footage essentially is jumping over stuff. He's either hitting flat gaps, he's hitting bump to bars, or he's jumping over handrails. I've broken down some of the stats from Tyshawn's parts, and it's about 3 out of 4 tricks are flip tricks over stuff. In the sense that they're both the best in the world at their particular style of skateboarding, I think it made sense that they would be the head-to-head skaters who are doing this cartoonish level of difficult skateboarding, In my mind, those were the two picks. If that was going to be the theme of this year, was just biggest, highest, fastest, Olympic style Skater of the Year thing, I'm fine with that with that happening. But if that's what it's going to be about, if you're going to give it to Tyshawn, in my opinion, the other guy should be Nyjah, because by and large, in terms of footage output, I think Nyjah showed more skill in his style of skateboarding than Tyshawn did in his style of skateboarding. I mean, Nyjah dropped footage on footage on footage, massive rails. He's like nose grinding 24 rails and shit, like as the fourth trick in his part. So that's just my opinion. I know why Tyshawn won. I get it, but I think they're whack for really not giving Nyjah a fair chance at it if they're going to nominate him and if they're going to accept his footage. To not really give him a chance, I think is total bullshit. It's like Thrasher has a history of this. Like they used to do this with Sheckler too. Like they'd make fun of him in the magazines and shit, but then they would still take his footage and invite him to the contests and shit. And I think that's really lame. Thrasher wants to have it both sides. They want the best skateboarding, but they also want to act like they're above the kookery of it all. You're not above like any kook Nyjah shit if you take his parts and you put them on your YouTube page. So yeah. The other side of it that I want to look at is what I think Louis and T-Funk represent, which this is another reason that I think Skater of the Year is kind of this weird, like, gross Thrasher looking like this greedy, fat media empire that wants to take everybody's footage and put it out in like 1 month to generate all of this hype. And it just ends up leaving a bad taste in my mouth. I started leaning towards Louis Lopez personally. And not because I think that he had the strongest footage of the year necessarily. I mean, I don't think he did the hardest shit. But because I respected Louis' approach and I respect him the most as a skateboarder out of all of these guys. If you were to think about skateboarding as a stat sheet, you have Nyjah and you have Tyshawn, just like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater or something. They've maxed out one specific stat. And that's about it. I would say that, Tyshawn has almost zero creativity in his skating whatsoever. I'll give Tyshawn a ton of credit. Can pop massively, and I don't think the creativity is the point of his skater, but he can pop massively. He can do almost any flip trick. But when Tyshawn goes to a spot, he skates the spot how it's supposed to be skated, and I would say a lot of the time he sort of just picks a flip trick. Occasionally, Tyshawn will do this thing like with this clip where he'll skate the obstacle backwards, and he'll do it in a way that almost nobody else can. But I think that he didn't do it enough this year. Like, he has this incredible ability, and I don't think that he's very imaginative with it. I think he could do a lot more, and I think he has a lot more potential than he shows with his 3 parts this year. I don't think that Tyshawn pushes skateboarding anywhere but in a straight line. The same I would say for Nyjah for the most part as well. Occasionally, Nyjah will do something pretty inspired and interesting on a particular obstacle, but it's really fucking random. Totally out of left field when he does it. It's like, what got into Nyjah that day? He did like this really, randomly tasteful hubba trick. I'd say both of those guys just skate spots the way that they're supposed to be skated. Louis Lopez, to me, is a very fun skater to watch because he can actually go somewhere and he will transform your perspective. He will look at a spot and he'll analyze the set of obstacles and he'll figure out a new way to skate it. To me, that's a really important part of skateboarding, and that gets lost in like the Thrasher Skater of the Year shit. You look at Louis' stat sheet and he's extremely well balanced. So I mean, of course, he can't grind as long of rails as Nyjah can, and he can't ollie as high as Tyshawn can, but Louis is doing all kinds of things that neither of those guys can even attempt to do. He kind of looks bland by comparison because he can't reach the high highs that those other guys can, but I think that Louis checks off, tons and tons of boxes that Nyjah and Tyshawn don't. The other thing that I like about Louis skating that I don't like about Tyshawn skating especially, but also to a lesser degree Nyjah's, is that Tyshawn keeps skating the same spots over and over and over again, and he just does different flip tricks at the same spots. I think it was like 40% of the spots that Tyshawn skated over his 3 video parts, not including the cans, because the point of the can stuff in Play Dead was repetition. 40% were spots that he did more than one trick on. And it's not even just in this soty run either. You look at Tyshawn's previous video parts, he skates so many of the same spots. So he does one style of skating and he keeps doing that same style of skating year after year at the same spots. So like, I wouldn't mind it as much, honestly, if it was like spread out over multiple years, if you got like a Tyshawn Jones part once a year, but you get 3 parts in a month, and I'm like, these are fucking all flip tricks at the same spots. Give me a break. Like, it's just way, 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 way too much. The impact of these video parts started to wane because on like the 3rd video part, and it opens, and I'm like, oh, saw Tyshawn hit that spot in the general. And then the next spot is like, oh, also saw Tyshawn hit that spot and play dead. I'm like, I feel like I'm living in fucking Groundhog's Day with these Tyshawn parts. Louis skates all kinds of spots. He skates a huge variety of spots, and you don't know what he's gonna do at any of these spots. Like I said, I'll admit, Tyshawn and Nyjah both have higher highs, and Nyjah is guilty of a lot of spot repetition too, but I think easily the most guilty of the spot repetition is Tyshawn. And I think that it becomes especially cumbersome and monotonous within the soty formula where you release 3 parts in 1 month. The fact that Tyshawn said that there was no soty formula, just do whatever you want, in that Thrasher interview.
There's no formula. You don't need to drop 4, 5, 6 parts or whatever. Do what you want to do. Stand out.
That makes no sense to me. He and Nyjah were playing the soty formula more than anybody else was. His Kingdom Come part was almost 2 minutes. They were desperately trying to hit the 2-minute mark, and there was like 5 seconds of black screen at the end of it, and he's releasing 3 video parts in a month. How is that not the soty formula? You are playing the game exactly. I mean, he won, he played the game well, but that's fine. Be honest and upfront about it. And I think he came across pretty well in that interview, but that's something that I really disagreed with that he said. Like, I don't know how you can act like there isn't a specific formula to win soty. Whoever kisses Thrasher's ring the best wins the award, which brings me to the other thing that I appreciate about Louis skating especially, but also Tristan Funkhauser's in contrast to Tyshawn and Nyjah, is that neither of those guys put their career on hold for 3 years, Louis came out with a part last year. He probably came out with a video part before that year too. He's not doing what Nyjah did, which is Nyjah just sat on all of his footage and then basically dumped all of it on us in 5 minutes. I have a lot more respect for the skateboarder that will just continue skating, continue doing projects and putting things out in an organic fashion because it's about your career as a whole versus just about trying to win one specific award. And I think that there is too much emphasis on Skater of the Year. And I don't like what it's doing to skateboarding. So, I think in that Tyshawn interview, they referenced the fact that there was a bunch of footage that Tyshawn could have had in the Godspeed video. He only had that hard flip because he was saving all of this stuff for this soty rollout.
Godspeed was what years?
2018, 2019.
I probably would have been in there, but we was planning for the 2022 comeback. We back in the streets now.
All the footage that he technically would have filmed in that part comes out now.
So it's like, dude, obviously there's a formula, man. Of course there's a formula. I give T-Funk, who was in Baker 4, had a great part in Baker 4, and Louis credit for the fact that they didn't let the soty thing completely dictate how their footage was dropped for the last couple of years. So one of the big reasons I think Louis wasn't going to win it is because Louis didn't have an exclamation point or like a banger or a finishing trick in the same way that every other skater had. Nyjah had the rail up to grind down. T-Funk had the China Banks ollie, and Tyshawn had the kickflip over the subway gap, and then the backside flip, which... Let's talk about this as well. I think a lot of people are kind of frustrated because soty feels so important, yet there's so much mystery about how soty is decided. Like, for example, we have this completely bogus voting system. Everybody, I think, knows it's bogus by now. If you didn't know it was bogus before, now you definitely know it's bogus. Soty is not decided by popular vote. The people at the magazine decide who wins soty. Like, the people who work there. Your vote doesn't count for shit. Maybe if they look and the person that they were thinking of picking has like 5 votes, then they might be like, maybe we should reconsider. But it's just a tool that Thrasher uses. They just want to hear feedback from the public. They don't actually really give that much of a fuck about what you or I think. So they call the shots. I think it's highly subjective, and anybody that's going to act like there was a completely correct decision it's just kind of like against what skateboarding is even about. You can't compare all of these skaters and correctly decide who wins what or who is the best. I just laid out a bunch of reasons that I appreciated Louis skating more than I appreciated, the way that Nyjah or Tyshawn skated and went about this award. But that's just my opinion. I'm not going to say that anybody else who thought Nyjah or Tyshawn should win is correct. That's just me personally, and if I worked at Thrasher, that's who I would have voted for. Part of the reason that Tyshawn winning left kind of a bad taste in my mouth is because I know that he's friends with people that work at Thrasher, and I'm not even really saying specifically that there was any bias in favor of Tyshawn because I don't actually know. But what I do know is that Louis Elliott, who works at Thrasher, is friends with Tyshawn. Gary Rogers, who works for Thrasher, is also friends with Tyshawn. And Tyshawn's doing interviews with Gary Rogers, and Louis Elliott is hanging out with him while he's switch-ollieing the picnic table and shit. It just feels a little bit like insider trading. There's a little bit of under-the-table stuff going on, and I don't even know if Louis Elliott or Gary Rogers have votes. I don't know who has a vote. We don't know anything, and that's part of the problem. So I don't know if that's suspicious or if it's not suspicious. The fact that all we know is there's just like a vote that doesn't do anything, and then, you know, maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 30 cloaked figures, you know, convene on Zoom and they discuss who Skater of the Year is. We don't know what the criteria is. It's all a big fucking mystery. There's no transparency. And maybe that's how Thrasher want it. I don't know. Maybe that's what they like. But from the outside, I'm like, my brain is working conspiratorially, and I'm trying to figure out why they're making decisions that they are making. I'm not really accusing Thrasher of doing anything specifically, but what I am saying is it doesn't always look very good for you guys when people that work for the mag are there hanging out with Tyshawn while he's doing tricks that contribute to his Skater of the Year run. When Thrasher announced the award, they announced it with Tyshawn backside flipping over the subway tracks, which was a great way to announce the award. It was very exciting. But I happen to know the way that transpired is the day that Thrasher announced that who was going to win Skater of the Year, they didn't even know who they were going to pick. It was still up in the air between Tyshawn and T-Funk. What happened is Tyshawn, from what I know, had been trying to backside flip the subway tracks for 4 days, I think. And when he did do it, I guess, Tyshawn's team or Tyshawn, whoever was communicating with whoever at Thrasher and said, I backside flipped the subway. Here's the footage. We're going to post it to the Hardys Instagram page. And that was going to be like another point for Tyshawn while everything was getting figured out. And Thrasher's like freaking out, and they're like, we don't know what to do. So eventually Thrasher just says, fuck it. We're going to give Tyshawn the award, and we're going to use the backside flip to post it. So you could make the argument that backside flip over the subway was like the thing that pushed it over the line, or you could see it in a different way. You could see it like Tyshawn like strong-armed the situation and said, this is what, like, I'm going to make fucking sure that I win soty. If it's like down to me and Tristan Funkhauser, I'm going to give them a reason they have to pick me. I feel a little bit like the fact that wasn't posted independently, but that was given directly to Thrasher, that doesn't seem correct. Again, it feels like there's a little bit of insider trading happening. I don't think that is the ethical way of going about it, because Thrasher should be this like relatively independent, neutral deciding force. And if you're giving them something that can go on their Instagram page that's going to get them tons and tons of views and likes and engagement, then that's going to influence their decision, because it benefits Thrasher so heavily. The fact that Tyshawn had that clip that he could hang over them and be like, we're posting this or you're giving me soty. He manipulated the situation, and Thrasher ended up bending the knee and taking it. So I don't like how that played out. And I'm 100% not blaming Tyshawn. I think that Tyshawn was very smart about how he went about doing that. I think that's a really intelligent thing to do, and he put himself in an excellent position to guarantee himself a Skater of the Year, which is what he wanted to accomplish. I think it's on Thrasher to draw the moral and ethical boundaries around that. Like I said before, Thrasher is a media company. They deal in media, and Tyshawn offered them a video that they really wanted, and I think it unquestionably pushed it over the line and influenced their decision, which I think Thrasher is in a position where they host a ton of skateboarding content, but then they are also supposed to be the group of people that decides who the best skater is. And they really, just the way that it's set up, they can't be trusted to make any type of unbiased or, well-informed decision, because they are going to be influenced by the amount of footage and the amount of content that each individual offers them. I don't think it's a question, There's a reason that when people are going for soty, they film their enders or a bunch of tricks in their part with Thrasher logos all over them. If you are deciding between putting your video part on Thrasher or Pocket Skate Mag, for example, and you want to win Skater of the Year, Thrasher's opinion is going to be influenced on whether or not you gave them your footage. If you give it to Pocket Magazine or Free Skate Mag, they're going to value it less than if you gave it to Thrasher themselves, because Thrasher's life source is skateboarding videos. So if you don't appease them, if you don't give them your footage, then they're going to value it less, point blank. Okay, so this is just an idea that I'm kicking around, and I'm taking inspiration from the NBA MVP regular season system, which is more sophisticated than what we have in skateboarding with Thrasher. So they have a group of panelists, and these panelists make a top 5 list of players that they think were the most valuable players of a season. And number 1 on their list gets 10 points, number 2 gets 7, number 3 gets 5, number 4 gets 3, and number 5 gets 1 point. And then they tally everything up, and the player with the most points overall is crowned MVP for that season. I like this system. I think it makes sense. And I would want to break it up into 3 sections, I think. And I'm probably going to do an end of 2022 video, and I'll probably try this out. I want to have 30% of the vote go to the public, so popular vote will have a place, and then 30% would go to pro skaters and people that work in the skateboarding industry. And then I guess 30% would go to media. So in that case, I think that there's a variety of perspectives that could go into tallying the vote, and everything would be transparent. Everybody would know which group of people voted for what and how everything was added up. And there would be some sort of quantifiable and understood version of how the decision was made. It wouldn't just be this mysterious thing where Thrasher is just the god of skateboarding and we're all sort of just supposed to submit to their decisions. So I'm open to criticism and feedback about this idea as well. Let me know if you guys, if this sounds like something you'd all be, interested in participating in. I just want there to be another option where there's more information about who's voting for what and how the whole system is going to work. Now, just so everybody knows, doing this after Thrasher's soty thing has already come out is not going to be fair to Tyshawn, obviously, because people are going to vote against him that may have voted for him because Thrasher has already given him the award. So I fully expect, if I do go through this, that Tyshawn is going to get fucked over under these circumstances because people are going to be biased against him and vote for somebody else because they don't want to see the same person get an award twice. So anyway, that's just what I'm thinking. And if somebody hasn't murdered me at Chevy Chase Skate Park by next year, I'll make sure to do the award before Thrasher does, so it's not influenced by their award. So yeah. As far as the bondoing thing is concerned, it doesn't matter because the whole, if you'll recall my switch ollie video, the premise of that and the reason that I felt that the switch ollie was improper by Tyshawn, it had been established in the past by other skaters. Here's what it means to clear a picnic table long ways. You must go from here to here. This is the starting point and this is the ending point. If you deviate from those areas, then you're not doing the trick in the same way that other people are doing it, so your trick doesn't count. The first ollie over, when he ollies the gap, there's no rumble strips. So because, as far as I know, I'm not a fucking skate historian, obviously. As far as I know, this is the first ollie over the spot. So the rumble strips have been added since then, but it's established based off of this clip that to ollie over the train tracks, this is what is required. You just have to jump from the one edge to the other edge. So bondoing over those rumble strips doesn't violate that. You're still within the boundaries of what has been set in the past by the first guy to do the same gap. Does that make sense? I think that's it. That's basically what I thought about all of that bullshit. I'm actually kind of happy that I didn't get my video out in time, where I would be speculating about who won and why I think, XYZ person should have won. Again, I don't think that Tyshawn is the wrong choice or anything. He just wasn't my choice. I liked Louis because I respected how he went about it. I really like the USC project too. You know, part of what I'm saying about skaters not putting their entire thing on hold is it's like, it's not part of the soty campaign to go to USC and film for 14 days in one location. You know, that's like a more specific and experimental part, like similar to the one Silas Baxter Neal did. And that's cool. Like, maybe you could, like, I don't think that was immediately, like, that wasn't part of the soty formula. Everyone knows the soty formula is save all of your footage until the very end of the year and overwhelm the audience. And that's what Nyjah and Tyshawn did. Louis was putting parts out all year, and he saved his best part for last, but, you know, he at least didn't fully buy into the same formula that everybody else was doing. So, also, I barely talked about Tristan Funkhauser this video, and the main reason for that is that surf music in the last part that he put out at the end just made me go feral. I wanted to explode, but his T-Funk and Tyson part was excellent. I think in my opinion that T-Funk had the best, not the best, who can say the best in skateboarding, but in terms of just like one single part, I thought that T-Funk part was the best of the whole year, just for my personal enjoyment. I mean, he skated so fast. He was so unpredictable. The things that he was doing, it was like unbelievable that he would even be able to roll away with the physics of what was happening. Yeah, really, really enjoyed that. Bye.